Okay, so this is our first formal lab report of the year, so I want to give you a chance to possibly review it later at night, or if you were to miss a day of class, you would still be able to type up the lab report. You could just expect to see this the day after your class, posted by then. So in this lab, our goal was to take four chemicals. So we had some calcium chloride. This is the formula for it. It looks like little pellets. It's a solid. These are the little pellets you might throw on your driveway or your steps in the winter, and it helps melt that snow. The second chemical we had was sodium bicarbonate. This would be the formula for that. So NaHCO3. This is a little white powder, and it's commonly called baking soda. Our third chemical is this indicator. Now, we don't really need to get into that just yet, but it is an indicator that's a little liquid. So I'm going to try and draw a little drop here. And it's called phenol red, and it's because it's this red color. And then our last chemical is just water, and we are using drops of water. So again, this is my best attempt to draw a drop. So what I'm going to do here is talk about the problem again of the lab, and then I'm going to give you the data that I witnessed. So I'll kind of run through, I guess, a procedure while I'm doing that. So the purpose of this lab, when we take all four of these chemicals and put them together in a Ziploc baggie, so this is supposed to be my Ziploc baggie, and then we put these little pellets and we put some sodium bicarbonate and we put a drop of water, and then we put a drop of phenol red. When we put all four of these in a baggie and mix them together, it ends up doing this. We get a solution forming that turns to this yellow color. It is emitting heat, and we see all of these bubbles forming. So they're bubbling out. So we see heat forming. You also might feel cold in some parts, but that's not one of the observations I'm focusing on. I'm focusing on the heat. So we have heat, we have a color change, it turns to yellow, and we have bubbles forming. Those bubbles are carbon dioxide gas bubbling out of here. So the purpose of this lab was to identify which combinations of chemicals cause the heat, which combination causes the yellow, and which combination causes the bubbles. So I want to try and isolate which of these substances cause these effects. So let's go ahead and perform an experiment. So in my first trial, I'm going to add together some pellets. I'm just going to draw little dots to represent my calcium chloride with some water. So I'll draw my little drop of water there. When you add these two substances together, it kind of turns to a white chalky color. It looks like the calcium chloride is dissolving. You don't see that color change, and you don't see really bubbles forming, but you do see this heat coming out. And the bag feels, depending on how much you added, it could be a little hot to very hot. Okay, so there we go. We already found one of the end results. The heat is caused by the calcium chloride and water. Okay, now let's keep going. Let's try and add the sodium bicarbonate, the NaHCO3. And I'm just going to draw like a little circle there kind of to represent that. Let's add that to some water. There's my attempt at a drop of water and see what happens. So we kind of get the sodium bicarbonate mixing with the water. Again, it turns kind of chalky white. It actually might feel a little bit cold, but you know what? We don't see any of the results that we were looking for. We don't see any yellow color change. We don't see any bubbles, and we don't see any heat produced. So nothing there. Okay, now let's add a drop of water. Again, my drop seems to be getting worse here. To a drop of phenol red. So I think the key is here that you really got to listen to these videos, not only look at them. So when you mix these two chemicals together, it looks like the solution just turns a little bit lighter red, almost a pinkish color. But we don't see any of those effects that we were looking for. No bubbles, no yellow, no heat. So none there. So we mixed them all with water, and we did find one of those combinations caused the result we're looking for. Okay, let's keep going and just try out some other combinations here. So what happens if I add my calcium chloride, maybe with my phenol red? Okay, when we do this, we've noticed that it turns a little bit chalky red color. We don't see that yellow or bubbles, but we still get that heat. So So it seems to me that if we had some sort of liquid solution, because again, these are drops, there must be somehow some liquid in there. If we had the calcium chloride as some sort of solution, we're making that heat. So maybe not just with the water. Okay, let's keep going here. So what happens if I add my sodium bicarbonate to my phenol red? Okay, again, we really just get a light chalky red color here. Turns a light pink, but we don't get any of the observed effects we were looking for. And then lastly, since both the calcium chloride and sodium bicarbonate are just solids, I'm not going to mix those together because they just kind of sit there together and nothing happens. So now what happens if we mix more than one of these chemicals together, or more than two of these chemicals together? So how about we take those two solids, calcium carbonate, we add it to that sodium bicarbonate, and now we also add a drop of water or some drops of water. Okay, now we start seeing one of those changes again. We see the heat evolving again. It gets a little hot. It feels cold in certain parts too, but there's the heat. And now we start seeing those bubbles flying out. So the heat and the bubbles were the result of the sodium bicarbonate and calcium chloride with that water. So let me do one more table here. Now we're going to do one more for the sake of this lab, and then we could maybe have some more combinations, but I still haven't got that yellow color. So now what happens if I do the same thing with my calcium chloride, my sodium bicarbonate, and now I add that to my phenol red indicator in there. When we add all three of these substances, we do get some heat still. That must be because the calcium chloride plus the phenol red, we kind of already isolated that. We do get some bubbles. But the thing we finally get now is that yellow color change. So it must be when we have the phenol red mixing with some combination of these two solids. So there's where we get our yellow color finally. Okay, now I would like you to use this data to try and write a lab report. So I hope that helps, and then see me or email me if you have any questions.